She was not always really comfortable with being the leader of a movement, would you say?
No, and she didn't want to be involved in the day-to-day activities. It was when we convinced her to start doing two things that I don't think she would have done otherwise. A, lecture at universities, and those lectures were wildly successful, and B, write nonfiction. That began to bring her out of her depression, seriously out of it, and was relevant to the creation of a movement. But in the meantime, Nathan and I had begun, at my suggestion, taping our lectures and appointing representatives in other cities who advertised them and arranged to have people come hear them. So that was creating a movement too. And you see, what Nathaniel had done in his lectures was to present Ayn's theories as a single consistent philosophy, which Ayn had not done to date. So that he gathered her ideas together and presented them in his 20 basic lectures of objectivism, including ideas of hers that she had not yet published. So, and you have to have that before you can have a movement around a philosophy. You have to have a presentation of the whole system. And that's what he did.
Hi, I'm Edward Hudgins.
And I'm William Thomas.
And this is the Atlas Society State of the Culture Updates. Today's topic is Barbara Branden Remembered.
You know, it's a sad day, really, for us. Barbara Branden passed away on December 11th, 2013, at the age of 84. For nearly 2 decades, she was a close associate of Ayn Rand, and with her then husband, Nathaniel Branden, she helped launch the Objectivist movement. And Barbara first met Ayn Rand because she and Nathaniel shared a love for Rand's novel, The Fountainhead. And during the 1950s, Barbara got to read Atlas Shrugged in manuscript as Ayn Rand wrote it. And in the 1960s, Barbara contributed articles to Rand's magazine, The Objectivist, and she developed a lecture course on efficient thinking that's been popular for years. And of course, in 1968, Ayn Rand broke with Nathaniel and Barbara. And at that time, it was a mystery to many of her fans why this happened. The break was symptomatic, really, of the cultish atmosphere that surrounded Rand at that time. Now, after Ayn Rand's death in 1981, it looked like the cultishness was going to fade away, and it should have. Objectivism is a philosophy of reason and independence, after all. And the founding of the Ayn Rand Institute seemed to signal the start of a new, open objectivist movement. But it wasn't to be.
No. And this brings us to Barbara's most important contribution to the objectivist movement. In 1986, she published The Passion of Ayn Rand. Now, this was the first serious biography of Rand. Now, in it, Barbara described the circumstances behind the break, so this was no longer a mystery. And she didn't gloss over some of Rand's shortcomings, but the book mostly offered a fact-based, positive narrative that celebrated the life of a woman that Barbara continued to find remarkable and fascinating. Further, Barbara discussed the problems with the objectivist movement. She tried to offer constructive criticism. Now, what's interesting is that back then, David Kelly, then a scholar at the Ayn Rand Institute, suggested that objectivists read Barbara's book and judge whether her criticisms were valid or not. The dogmatists rejected this notion, in effect refusing to face objective reality. So the controversy surrounding Barbara's book helped give birth to the open approach to objectivism and eventually to this organization, the Atlas Society.
Yeah. And in recent years, Barbara has lectured on her years with Ayn Rand and how to apply objectivism to improving one's life, including many talks at Atlas Society events. She still loved the radiant vision of the world as it could and should be that's reflected in Rand's novels. And she tried to offer positive advice on life, especially to young people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you know, it's interesting. I would see Barbara usually maybe once a year in the last a couple of years. I remember I was having dinner with her just around her 80th birthday, and she said to me, I don't feel any different even though I'm turning 80 years old. She was not intellectually or mentally or spiritually old. She was still sharp as a tack. I remember in the last couple of years when I would see her, she was wearing a Star of David, a little pendant. And I asked her about this, and it wasn't that she was becoming religious. She was not. She was an atheist. Okay? But she said essentially it was a statement concerning Islam, but also concerning the leftists who like to tear down Jews and the state of Israel, not for vices, but for virtues. So Barbara was an open and a warm individual, always with time to share and to discuss with people, especially young people. She remained intellectually sharp and passionate right up to the end, always loving life. She was truly a remarkable woman. She's going to truly be missed. This has been the Atlas Society State of the Culture Update, and I thank you for listening.
Rest in peace, Barbara.